Mr. Chairman, to that point,
Mr. Farnsworth.
second time he said nobody's wanted to listen.
Sitting here listening.
I've talked to people. I've listened to the pension proposals. I have met with outside people to see what the contract and Constitution does. And so I respectfully disagree. I understand this is an emotional issue, but just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I'm not listening. So I candidly find your testimony to be inflammatory and derogatory.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Farnsworth, it is not meant to be. But we have heard nothing from the representatives here. Nothing publicly from them stating we've heard you. So if you have, I'll apologize to you right here, right now in front of everyone. But no one seems to want to do that. No one wants to stand up and say, I've looked at this, but this is better. And that's unfortunate because that's what a stakeholders meeting does.
Well, I think, Mr. Livingston, even in the beginning of this conversation today, I expressed some concerns relative to probably an issue that you're concerned about. I brought that directly to the speaker in testimony. I believe there was other questions that were asked as well. I did express earlier on when we were dealing with a lot of these pension bills that this is a process. We all know that process, and we know currently there's probably 2 or 3 more times that these bills will be dealt with in some shape, manner, or form. And this is a vetting, so to speak, as things move through the process. This is a vetting of those issues where the input, we're all sitting here actually listening, believe it or not. I mean, you may not think we are, but we are listening because that's where we get the opportunity to go back and have these discussions where amendments start to move and things start to change. And so continue, and I will, as always, I will continue to listen.
And Mr. Chairman, to your comments you made earlier, I thank you because you're right on. You are absolutely right on. And that is the first public statement we have heard in that regard. My comments are directed before this hearing. So please accept that in that vein. Finally, I ask you this, and I'm going to cut it short, because it is, you're right, it's a very emotional, inflammatory issue because I've been to the grave sites and I've seen the families, those that you want to hurt with this COLA decision. I've wept for them and I saw them suffer, but let's worry more about dollars than them at this point. At least that's the way it feels. So finally, as you make your comments regarding this, I ask you to look in the audience. I ask you to look at the eyes of those people who are willing to die for you and tell them what was promised doesn't matter. Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Livingston?
No, but once again, I'll express my disappointment to stand here and tell us that we want to hurt the children of fallen officers, again, is counterproductive, inflammatory, and candidly untrue. I don't appreciate your comments. It does not reflect my views. I'm grateful for those who serve. I'm grateful for those who go in harm's way. But we have a very difficult task at hand. If you disagree with us, that's fine. But to stand there and to tell me that I don't care and that I'm ignoring people is candidly untrue. And it's unfortunate that you would come up and represent yourself in that manner in such an inflammatory and derogatory way.
Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I wanted to say, as difficult as it might be to hear, I think that Mr. Livingston represents a very important part of the state and is certainly entitled to use whatever powerful words he believes represents his membership. And to me, that's all it sounded like he was doing. And Mr. Livingston, I wanted to say, certainly on behalf of cops in Tucson and Pima County, where I come from, I've been listening. I'm prepared to support the Fillmore Amendment. I think it, and I hope some other members on this committee would. I think that would help. But with all due respect, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, people are entitled to come in front of the committee and describe the way they see it, and that's all I heard. tough issue. Cops are tough people, most of them, and that's why we need them. They help us. They help protect us. And I appreciate the passion that Mr. Livingston brings to this committee, and the fact that he's got a lot of people backing him on this, including myself. So thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Patterson,
To that point, Mr.
you
Farnsworth,
agree that there are people on this committee and in this legislature that want to hurt the children of fallen officers. That's the intent of this legislature. Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Farnsworth,
Patterson.
no.
That's
Mr. Chairman,
what-
Mr.
that's what he
Farnsworth,
said.
what I'm saying is that people are entitled to come in front of the committee and describe the way that they see the legislation we're considering and how it affects people. And that's what I heard.
That's not what he said, Mr. Patterson, Mr. Chairman.
Well, that was my, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Farnsworth, that was my interpretation.
okay, all right.
Thank you.
Go back and review the video.
Mr. Fillmore,
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Farnsworth, Mr. Patterson, Mr. Livingston. The acrimony of the argument is based upon the emotionalism of this moment, and the depth and the sincerity of the argument to me is very vivid, black and white. I sincerely appreciate, Mr. Livingston. Are you an ex-cop?
Yes.
You sound it. No offense. But quite honestly, I understand and appreciate and underscore Mr. Farnsworth's words, because I do feel that what was said was affrontive. But I would say this, that the words that I heard from Mr. Livingston was to this moment he had not heard. And I don't know what he heard, I don't. But I say that as we go forward through this committee, I believe we are all listening, and that we will all speak before the day is out, and I believe we do. And I hope that as a whole, we get beyond the emotionalism of this and understand the importance of us supporting the police and the firemen, and not have the little bit of acrimony, whether it's partisan on the behalf of one, perhaps, and then the sincerity of the in-depth about the personal affront from another. But that we do understand, Mr. Livingston, I understand that this is a very emotional issue, but I want you to, I know that these individuals that I'm up here with, that I've had the opportunity to work with them over the last couple of months, one-on-one, and every one of them, as you would stand up for one of your brothers or one of the firefighters or one of the policemen, I would stand up for them as well, because the depth of appreciation that I have for them and the intellectual capability and understanding the Constitution, and also understanding what is right for society and all of our members out there, and that includes the police and the children of the police and the grandchildren of the police and the spouses of those that have fallen, is that they do take this very sincere. And that's why I had no problem at all crossing over what sometimes has been perceived by some to be a partisan issue, and to take this up on behalf of the police and firemen, because it is not a partisan issue. It is an issue that is deep to me in my heart and in my belief that fundamentally, the prime responsibility of government is the protection. And the first responders are our first line, next to our defenders of the national defense and our soldiers, of which I have been one in the past. So on that, I do believe that we should not get locked up in the passion of the moment and that. And with that, I'll shut up.